Welcome to Find Your Center, the Weight Loss Surgery Show. Hey, it's Dr. Tuzian. So, this week, I'd like to start off by telling a very basic story. This is a story of a woman that comes to the office about 100 pounds over what her healthy body weight, basically having a body mass index of 40, and not being able to lose it. She's tried dieting, she's tried exercise, she's even tried having an abdominoplasty, or essentially having some of her fat mass cut out. And that worked for a little bit of time when she lost 30, 40 pounds after a big abdominoplasty. But she's surprised that the weight came back on. But it doesn't necessarily come back on in the same spot that she had the surgery. It came back in many different areas. And so she's very confused as to why this would be the case. So, again, this is a very common story. And the reason that this occurs is that the body, or I should say the brain, is very good at defending its overall fat mass. And this kind of brings us to the concept of fat mass set point. Now, this has been shown time and time again to really be more the accurate way of our body's mechanism to defend its overall fat mass. And this has been shown through the folks up at Mass General Hospital, led by Dr. Lee Kaplan. So this really kind of goes on to where our weight is controlled, or better question, where our fat mass is controlled. And the answer is our brains. But although that's a correct answer, it's not precise enough. It's almost like asking my 4-year-old, where do you live? And he tells me the planet Earth. It's not that helpful. It's true, but it's not that helpful. So our fat mass is controlled in the deep part of the brain called the limbic system, or a little bit more specifically, the area called the hypothalamus, and a little size P section called the arcuate nucleus. And this is a very robust part of the brain that kind of is influenced by a lot of different things: nerves, hormones, overall genetics, etc. The one thing, though, that this part of the brain is not influenced by, our willpower, our desire to lose weight through calorie restriction or doing anything else of that nature. So some of the influencers on our overall fat mass set point are abnormal dietary constituents, unhealthy muscle, or basically inactive muscle, decreased sleep. Even a half hour, one time a week can actually cause disruption of our overall sleep cycle and even promote weight gain. Stress, disrupted circadian rhythms, eating disrupted patterns, etc., and medications. And there's a sort of a seventh item that kind of goes on to this, and that's really more attributed to our overall environment, which is changing with different chemicals that are in our air that also have an impact in our overall fat mass set point. But there's a very other significant component that comes into play here, and that's the time and duration that something is abnormal. For instance, when I was in surgical residency, I started off at a pretty good healthy weight, but it wasn't long after I started that residency that I was 20, 30 pounds over what my healthy weight would be. I didn't really think much of it. It just kind of came on relatively quickly, but it was busy. My food eating, the food that I was eating was very disrupted. It was from the cafeteria. With that, I was eating out with my wife when I would have time back at home. Sleep was variable at best. To say the least, that we were under a significant amount of stress would be a underselling of what that all is. And there wasn't enough time in the day to do the physical activity that really would be beneficial. So with that said, my weight went up, but I wasn't in residency forever. In fact, I was at a higher weight for a short period of time before I really started to clean up my diet and start to eat healthier, find time and make time to be a little bit more physically active, and reduce the number of times that I would eat at the cafeteria or eat out as well too, and try to find ways of reducing overall stress. So the key element here for me was lack of time, or decreased time at these abnormal components. So my fat mass didn't really get didn't really get to set up at this higher mass level or higher weight. So I was able to drop that weight down relatively quickly over about a year to a year and a half or so. But as folks are dealing with this long term, they find that changes in their overall dietary patterns, even if they are eating healthier or reducing their stress or getting proper sleep or even becoming more physically active, doesn't really help them lose the weight that they think that it should. And that could be very frustrating. And the issue here is our overall fat mass. I'll give you another example of how our bodies defend certain masses. Take, for instance, somebody who undergoes a liver resection. And we know that folks are now donating portions of their liver for transplant purposes because the liver will regenerate. It doesn't regenerate in the part that we've actually taken it from. It actually regenerates into other areas that are still in existence. And our body, our brain, defends that mass of our liver. The other would also is our red blood cell mass or our blood levels. Folks donate blood all the time to the American Red Cross, and it's a very wonderful thing that folks do. And they would only do it if our bodies are able to replace back that red blood cell mass because our brains really want it to be at a certain level. That's where our healthy red blood cell mass is. So we can donate blood and our body will regenerate those red blood cells and make up that difference. So our body can defend certain masses, and one of them is our overall fat mass. So as we kind of go along, as our fat mass becomes dysregulated, that leads to obesity, but it's really the fact that the abnormal constituents in our food are unhealthy muscle or inactive muscle, stressors, disrupted rhythms, and medications that really promote this dysregulation of our overall fat mass. So in my next episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this dysregulation. Well, as always, please feel free to provide some commentary. Love to hear suggestions, different topics that folks would like to hear. And again, thank you always for listening. And feel free to email me with just any particular questions in general. Thanks. Stay tuned for more podcasts from Find Your Center, the Weight Loss Surgery Show. Thanks for listening.